Welcome to CMMS Radio, a podcast and general resource for all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, from selection to implementation to help you make better choices and have a successful CMMS journey. We'll bring in experts along the way to help us learn more about CMMS, facilities operations, and much more. If you need help with the CMMS project, send a message at cmmsradio.com using the What's on Your Mind link. Suggest a topic, share your CMMS story, or ask questions. This episode is sponsored by Upkeep, purpose-built for maintenance, reliability, and operations teams. Our mobile-first CMMS and asset operations management solution puts work orders, inventory, and asset info in the palm of your hand. Designed for ease of use and adoption, Upkeep aligns your team for peak business performance. Transform your operations. Transform your success with the multi-platform solution of Upkeep. Visit upkeep.com/CMMS radio to receive a dedicated custom discovery session. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Today we are joined by Matthew Knuth. He is a CMRT, and he's with SPM Instrument. They are a global leader in condition monitoring technology. Matt and I got to talking at the recent Reliable Plant Conference in Orlando. That was in August of 2023. We talked about all kinds of crazy stuff. We were talking about sensor monitoring, CMMS. We were talking about the maintenance community and how people sometimes just get all this technology just pushed on them. People make investments and purchases and the deployments fail and all this kind of stuff that we all see it. Anybody that's listening, anybody that's checked out any of the past episodes, anybody that's talked to Matt or talked to me off the mic, a lot of real conversations around this, that these things are tools. They're phenomenal tools, but it's going to come down to the people that are going to use them. And I want to get into some of those conversations we've had off mic. Matt, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Hey, Greg, glad to be here. Glad we could finally connect.
Yeah, I know. We've had a few connection difficulties. Who knows what's going on with that? But
that's right. I'm catching up to Corey now. This is officially my second episode.
Technically it is. So first episode, everybody didn't make it. It's on the editing room floor, so to speak. But we're going to get into some cool stuff. So one of the things you and I have talked about, Matt, is kind of your experience that led you into the industry, and it's pretty interesting to me. So I wanted to see if you could just give us a little bit of background, going back to the dirt track story and a lot of the stuff that you were into, and then how that led you into present day, kind of your journey story.
Sure. My origin story. So it started off, I was a young kid growing up here in central Wisconsin. Dirt track racing's a pretty big pastime in some of our small communities. So I grew up as a kid about a block away from a large half-mile track in Shawano, Wisconsin. So as a kid, when Saturday night I'd go to bed, until I started going to the dirt track, I'd hear those late models just roaring around the track, and it always kind of I was always drawn to it. So then fast forwarding, like I said in other conversations, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. I took prep classes and things like that, but I always kind of liked tinkering with things. My brother and I were always into hot rods, and as I got older, I joined one of those dirt racing teams with my brother, whose close friend was running an IMCA modified, so I got a lot of firsthand exposure to that. But long story short, I just followed in the family footsteps. I ended up going to school, trade school, for automotive technology. My brother was an automotive tech. My grandfather ran his own shop in Wisconsin for many, many years. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
I did that for a few years, up until about 2000. In 2000, I made the switch to industrial. My brother-in-law was working for a local family-owned company that ran a group of motor repair shops here in Wisconsin. And he said, "Hey, why don't you come on over? The money's better in industry versus turning wrenches. Easier way to make money." I said, "Yeah, what the hell? Why not, man?" I'm like, so that's what I did. So I went and I adapted very quickly. Started working on gearboxes, pumps, AC, DC motors, all that kind of stuff. Enjoyed the hell out of it. And in the process of doing that, I was asked if I wanted to help doing some grunt work with our electrical field service division. Humping breakers out and testing breakers and putting them back in on outages. I like that, so I went back to school again for electromechanical technology. And in the process of doing that, I started working part time for our mechanical field services group, doing alignment, balancing, ultrasonics, um, vibration analysis, of course. And I just fell in love with it, and the rest is history. And here I am going on almost just under 25 years of doing it.
Yeah, and so with SPM instrument, you and I have talked a lot about that,
Hmm.
like, and you've got to see a lot of cool things. And one of the things that you've had change recently in the last, I can't quite remember when it was, but you're now a CMRT, and I know that was important to grab that credential. And we can all say right now that credentials matter, but at the same time there's a lot of people that don't have the credential, they don't have the time to get to that credentialing, go through the classes and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's kind of an accomplishment, considering you're still a busy guy and you got a family and you're able to study up and go ahead and take that test. What is the thing about the CMRT that you find most relates to what you do right now?
Well, that's a great question. The CMRT, I just, like I had said in prior conversations, I knew of SMRP when they had started up over 20 years ago. But as I read through it all and stuff, I never thought it would pertain to me, being a boots on the ground vibration guy. Um, so now in this role with SPM, it's I'm in sales, right? And I never thought I would ever transition from field service guy to sales, because by and large, I've always hated salesmen.
Mhm.
And when I was working for my prior company, I did everything in my power to keep salespeople out of my accounts. And that was because most, salespeople, they didn't have that experience. It's not because they were bad people by any means. They just didn't understand the technology, stuff like that. So I brought it upon myself to educate my customers versus a salesperson, getting in the middle. And it worked out. Sorry, salespeople, but it worked out because I grew that business 600% very
Mm.
quickly. And in the Midwest, I just built a real strong, solid name for myself by being known as a guy that wouldn't bullshit people. I learned very quickly, here in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a great state to. I'm going to plug our state a little bit here, Greg, but it's a great state to cut your teeth in, because it's such a diverse uh, eh, group of industrial companies. I mean, we have over 10,000 manufacturing facilities in Wisconsin alone, besides all the power generation and different things like that. So besides the oil and gas, and I think the oil and gas industry is really the only thing that doesn't have a heavy presence here.
Mhm.
Um, so I, Getting back to your original question of the CMRT, it was it was something I needed to prove to myself that, okay,
Okay.
I've been doing this for almost 25 years. The CMRT spoke more to me than the CMRP. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Um, because the CMRT was more of a boots on the ground thing. So it touched on safety regulations. It touched on, understanding predictive maintenance and how it all comes together versus, in my opinion, the CMRP is a lot more theory, best practices, and things like that. So I just one day, as I started going through this, now that I have time, that I'm not traveling all over the place, doing vibration analysis every day, I thought, well, I'm gonna start getting these credentials, and
Yeah.
more so, it's for me. And
Right.
plus, I think because I've built up over 25 years, I got that street cred, if you will. Like,
Right.
I've proven to people, like I said, I've made my legacy, if you will, of by not bullshitting people, and people know that about me. Like, if I don't have an answer, I'm going to find somebody who's got the answer, or I'm going to
Yeah.
figure it out for you. So again, the CMRT, what drew me to that was just trying to validate that I learned something over the last 25 years, because I've kind
Yeah.
of done it, the whole certification thing. I kind of did maybe backwards. I think a lot of people go when they're young and eager, they go and they get those certifications. I built up a ton of experience and then went and got, up to my level 3. I didn't even go and do my level 3 until like 2000, what was it, 18, 16, 16, somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went and did my level 4. I took the class, and I'm still, now that I got time, I'm still waiting to go and finish that out whenever I get time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to do the CMRP. Uh, I think just to get more credibility on that side for what I'm looking to do. Like I said, I'm in sales. That's where I was going with this rant. But the sales, the beauty of it for me was the transition was easy because the sales happen organically because I speak the same language of the reliability engineers, the vibration analysts, the boots on the ground, if you will.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
coming in as a sales guy saying, "Hey, look at my shiny new toy and my IoT sensor, and hey, just plug this sucker in and hit this button, and you'll never get a call at 3 a.m. again that your paper machine went down."
Right.
I'm not selling a bill of goods. You
Right.
know,
Right.
so
You're,
the sales side happens organically, and luckily, I work for a great company that's a family-owned company, and they give me that freedom to go and speak at conferences and to build relationships, the stuff I really love, and the sales just kind of follow it, man. It really
yeah.
does.
And a lot of that, I know you've mentioned it before when we've talked. It's this connection and going after something without necessarily, oh, I got to get the sale. It's more about, well, what's the problem? Let's understand the problem. Have you looked here? Did you look behind this corner? Did you check this, that, or the other thing?
Hmm.
And that's how you really get it done, and people can sense that when you're working with them. And I think one of the things you said that I really appreciate is when you don't know the answer but you can go and find it, people are going to appreciate that instead of you just taking a crack at it and you might be completely off. And speaking of these certifications and things, I think a lot of us out here, we want some of those certifications, but finding the time, the bandwidth, and then it can be a little bit about, hey, I got to read and remember all this information.
Hmm.
One of the things that's really helpful for that is having some kind of course that can get you prepared for that and kind of tie all those things together. So I want to just quickly let everybody know, any of you out there, if you are looking to get the CMRP credential, the Certified Maintenance and Reliability Professional credential, we at CMMS Radio have a very special offer. It includes a discount and it's for your prep course, and it is taught by the best in the business. So visit cmmsradio.com, check the affiliate page. You'll find it there. And you can also DM me on LinkedIn and I'll get that info to you directly. Anybody that needs help with that, it's a great prep course. It's the gold standard when it comes to that, and you will get a discount. So hit me up on that. Now, I wanted to switch back. I know you recently attended SMRP. That was last month in Orlando. Big
Hmm.
event. I couldn't be there. I know that you participated in the group photo that was kind of to say, hey, Greg and CMMS Radio, we listen to you. We've been on. We follow you. I thought that was really cool. But aside from that, what else did you like about that show? Because I think it was your first time attending SMRP, right?
It was, and really, it was the photo opportunity that drew me there, and really the only reason I went.
Ah, good,
No,
good. That's
man, man, I'll tell you, I was looking at that picture again before I came on here, and what a cast of characters! And it was an absolute honor to be included. When you look at that photo, what an absolute mix of legends and industry up and comers. Everybody in that photo. Of course, I'm a little biased, but
sure.
honestly, you can't deny it. Everybody in that photo, they're stone cold killers, man, in their fields. They are stone cold. You know,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it. And like I said, the young guys coming up, that are just again, no bullshit about them. You spend 5 minutes with anybody in that picture, and you know that it's not about the sale or the bottom line. It's about actually helping customers. It's about just really improving what you're doing in your plants, and that's what I really like.
Yeah.
But I look at that and I thought, man, of course, my the one little bit of sales brain in me says, man, look at that group. I'm like, if that crew ever started a company, it would be absolute world domination.
And well, and that's one of the things, like, for example, reliable plant. That was my first time when I went to reliable plant, which was in August, and that was part of the reason I couldn't make it to SMRP, because the timing and all the things in the queue and the backlog and whatever else, right? Excuses.
Right.
But all of the people at those events, they're all kind of attuned to the maintenance industry as a whole, industrial automation and sensor monitoring, and consultants that can come in and literally help you with anything. And I'm always talking about CMMS, but what I'm really after when we say CMMS radio is the maintenance management part. You need computerized maintenance management software, you need some of these other things, but you need people. And the people at these events, not only do they know the score and understand what's going on, but they're so focused on the helping aspect.
Right.
And it creates that full circle elusive win-win type of deal that I think a lot of us are really after. And uh, I think you're right. I mean, if you took the group that was in that photo and formed a company, I mean, it'd be pretty damn impressive from a knowledge and actually get it done type perspective. And you got all age groups represented and all that kind of stuff. You were there with the motor doc, and he was on CMMS radio. We just haven't dropped the episode yet. So
Dude's a
um,
legend, man. The
oh yeah,
guy's a legend.
for sure. And so now I want to switch away from your SMRP experience, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the technology, whether it's CMMS or otherwise. In your case, we're talking about sensor monitoring, right? Does it appear in any of these technology implementations that there's a pretty high number of barriers to getting those implementations to be successful? And if so, what are they, and how are people getting past them?
I think the biggest barrier is that much like I talked about down at Reliable Plant in my presentation, is that people feel this rush to implement. You if you spend any amount of time on the internet or LinkedIn especially, I mean, you can come across any number of self-glossed industry 4.0 experts, and the dudes that are trying to be 5.0 experts already, and AI, ML. People are confused, man. They're confused. And you know, I was sitting in the hall. We were sitting out in the hall, Corey and I, and we were talking at SMRP. And I said, man, I said, what's wild to me is that here we are coming up on 2024, and when you look at any of these conferences, whether it's SMRP, Reliable Plant, any of them, I mean, just looking at training conferences, it's still the same old stuff that we're talking about, and you ask yourself, like, why is that? And then I kind of feel like I've been sitting under a rock the last 20 years out in service thinking, like, how can we still be having conversations about and people arguing about the right way to align a motor, or how to grease a motor, and then people want to argue about it, or you know or best practices, and things like that. um Barriers, I think the biggest barrier one is what I call implementation before education. The technology is moving faster than the comprehension. I think, up until, like we've spoke about before, and I know I'm all over the board, but
Okay.
up until the last 7 8 years when IoT came out, really technology didn't move that fast in condition monitoring. We had vibration analysis, we had that for several decades. Um, then you had, ultrasonics came out, the latest with motion amplification, um, modal analysis. Some things changed, but all of a sudden, when the IoT thing broke out, man, it turned into the Wild West. Um, and there was a lot of, I'll just come out and say it. There was a lot of disingenuous information out there,
Mhm.
and a lot of it didn't live up to the hype. You know, like I said, Industry 4.0, everybody's like, hurry up and implement, or fall behind. So I think people felt like that's where it was going.
Yeah.
And I think now it's not a matter of think. I see it all the time. Greg, let me put it this way. I can't tell you how many times I go into plants and I trip over boxes and boxes of sensors, whether they're IoT or traditional sensors, because one, the implementation of it never happened. Companies come in and sell them a bill of goods, and they sit in a pilot purgatory forever, monitoring machines that probably aren't going to fail for 15 years. They don't put them on bad actors and really vet anything out. Or said company comes in, next thing you know, their capital runs out, and now they're not around anymore, or people just get frustrated with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could sit and speak on barriers all day on that, but I think a lot of it is, one, people don't have a vision and a plan. Two, the education's not there. But really, if I could just finish with this, it's not a new problem, because 20 years ago, when I would get called in, to help out, say, a large scale paper mill or whatever, it would be, I would go into their in-house programs, and I would see, like, the mill would go and buy, like, the latest and greatest portable analyzer, the software, throw it at a millwright who's in there for, maybe he's in because of seniority, and he's only got a year to go, thinks it's an easy job before he retires, and really there's no good implementation. Or, like, here it is, now don't let anything fail. Now, that's ludicrous, man. That's
Yeah.
ludicrous.
Yeah.
And the same thing's happening now, except companies aren't buying portable data collectors and throwing them at guys with no experience or training. They're now just throwing wireless sensors on everything and saying, "We're good. Send me
Yeah.
an
Right.
email alert." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty profound. What kind of data you get?" Now, again, like I say, I'm not anti IoT or any of that by any
Right.
means.
Right.
I'm just anti bad information. I've in my presentation, that I did down in Orlando, a hybrid approach to condition monitoring, I touched base on that, because I got to the point where it's just like, I'm seeing so much confusion out there, and there
Yeah.
doesn't need to be this rush. I mean, if it businesses aren't going, they're not tanking under because they're not censoring everything right away. And I think people just need to take a breath. People just need to take a damn breath, get a vision, get a plan, and take it from there. I'm a big old school guy. I like to. I've been reading. As I've been studying for the CMRP. I've been kind of integrating a lot of that thought into the boots on the ground thing.
Hmm.
And my approach to it is, it's got to go back to the asset. It's got to be an asset based approach, not a tech based approach. I'm afraid we're moving into more of a tech base, and hoping that the technology that you go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on, or whatever you jump into bed with, is going to cover everything. And I'm
Yeah.
here to tell you, people, there's not a one size fits all. I'll argue that with any company, anybody, any day of the week. In condition monitoring, there's just not that one size fits all approach yet. So
Yeah.
I tell people, you really have to look at uh, what you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really great point to talk a little bit about, why I wanted to talk about the sensor monitoring when we're on CMMS radio. Well, it's part of a maintenance management process. Technology in and of itself, we all know that it is a tool, and it's going to come down to the use of that tool by the people. So they've got to have the right kind of culture, so to speak. And everybody
Right.
throws this around. And what we're talking about there is whether you're implementing a computerized maintenance management software, uh, Internet of Things, the sensor monitoring, all these different technologies. These are all great technologies, but you certainly don't want someone to sell you way more than you need. You
Right.
certainly don't want to go into it blindly without knowing what your process is. And this happens with all of these technologies where,
All the
ooh,
time.
yeah, we need that. We don't have that. So we're going to get that. And then we get that. And then it just sits because now you got to really roll your sleeves up and dig in. Maybe they get vendors that just don't have the right setup process for them. Maybe they selected the wrong solution, and they didn't really connect it to the problem before they made that investment, and then it just goes nowhere. It happens all the time. People leave. We've got these other issues when it comes to say, for example, in maintenance and skilled trades, we've got people leaving for retirement. We've
Absolutely.
got people that don't even realize that this is an industry that you can enter and have an absolutely rewarding and brilliant career, because we don't see, kind of on a soapbox, sorry.
No, I like
we
it.
we don't see, high schools with the programs that they used to have that really introduce and provide these opportunities. When I was a kid, you see dad or this or somebody in the neighborhood wrenching on a hot rod, working on this. Somebody might have a miniature machine shop in their garage and they're
Hmm.
making parts, and you're just this kid and you're like, oh, hey, Mr. So and so, what are you doing? And he starts showing you. Well, by the time you get to high school, the awesome thing for me was, oh, high school, ninth grade, I can get some actual classes I care about. Auto shop, metal shop, drafting, wood shop,
Hmm.
and you take those things with you forever. Now, not all the kids that go into those courses are going to say, oh, I love this, I'm going to do stuff like this forever, but there's going to be some, and I think we're missing that boat right now. So I kind of spun way out there, but with the technology, like you're saying, um, I think it gets oversold, overpromised. People don't know what they're getting into. They expect it to do too much. So now that I've talked enough, I want to ask you another question, man. Um, are you seeing a persistent disconnect between maintenance operations and the overall business when it comes to how and why technology is brought into the organization in the first place?
Huge disconnect. Again, I think the whole Industry 4.0 push and IoT push really set that off. Um, Listen, today, as in the beginning 50, 60 years ago when condition monitoring, really started out, the one thing that hasn't changed is, you know, to be successful, it's got to have a combination of both the technology and the people. There needs to be investment, equally in both. um, Again, that comes back to the training, the education thing, going back to what you were saying about the skilled trades. My wife for many years worked for the Wisconsin technical system, so I would go and speak to these classes. And again, like I said, I was so busy for 20 almost 25 years out on the road, and as I would pull myself off the road, and especially now that I'm doing more trade shows and speaking and stuff, I can see that disconnect between one, the companies, the education, and also the numbers of people in tech schools. I mean, man, when I went to automotive and electromechanical, there was a waiting list.
Yeah.
Now it's like I walk in there and I talk to a class of kids or young men and women. It's like, there's maybe 10 people.
Yeah. You're like, where are all the other students? And they're like,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
they're
where is
here.
everybody, man? Are they all out sleeping off a hangover in the parking lot, or what are we doing here? Because there should be more people. Because really, technology has been changing in this. There's a lot of neat stuff out there, and the money's good. The money has come around. I mean, there's people making great money on both the electrical side, mechanical side. But we could talk about all that on another episode. I mean, but I don't think it's what sounded like my grandfather. Get off my damn lawn. It's not like all those damn kids. They don't want to put a work ethic. It's just not what they know, man.
Right.
I graduated high school back in '96, and I think email was just starting to be a thing, and the old dial-up internet and all that
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
You know, I mean, now my kids, my 5-year old, my 7-year old could probably run my data analyzer,
Oh, for sure. For sure. And
or align a complex machine. I mean, with the technology, they just look at it and say, "Oh yeah, that looks familiar." I mean, it's a
that's,
different world,
and I think you're so right about that. And I think that's a really, really good thing. What I think is not so good is that they don't have that same basis
right?
of what it's like to fix something or how to inspect it properly, how to do lubrication, all these different things. So now I'm going to switch it again. So we're
Well, let me
kind of,
finish. I
yeah,
hate to
yeah, go
interrupt you,
ahead.
but let me finish that question,
Yeah.
because I went off spinning off into the ditch as well. But like I said prior, the technology is outpacing the comprehension of it. That's why I think people need to take a breath. I think with this last round of technology, the IoT thing, I think a lot of that was implemented from the top down. That wasn't brought in by the condition monitoring people.
Ah,
You had mentioned the word culture before. We can go anywhere and see culture, 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 this, culture, that. That word's thrown around. I leave that to the culture people. I like to bring up communication. To
mhm.
me, there's a huge lack of communication. And part of that is, um, when companies all of a sudden said to uh, the execs, "Hey, we need to get on board with this industry 4.0." Well, the low hanging fruit, the easy thing was the vibration sensor. People say, well, why all of a sudden is all this IoT out? Well, I'm like, well, simple. Um, 86% of plants or use vibration analysis. It's the most used thing. So the sensor companies, the tech companies got involved, right? So there's a lot of one trick pony companies out there uh, with the wireless sensors because that's by and large the technology that people were using.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think, like you had alluded to before or had mentioned, a lot of this was just bought up, implemented. And again, I think that's a communication breakdown because by and large, the boots on the ground, the vibration guys, the lube guys, whatever, they're not invited to the table. And that's the culture change that I'm trying to change in my presentations. When I speak at conferences and different things, I say, hey, you got to let these guys have a seat at the table. You can't
Yep.
just make this decision up here because by and large, C-suite execs, those people know nothing about condition monitoring, plant managers, and stuff like that. And that's not a dig on them. That's just not their job.
That's right. When that happens, even people that come from boots on the ground and and start climbing the ladder, because there's going to be a natural progression. If you are, say, for example, suited for a supervisory role, suited for a pure management or executive role, if that's the case, you're going to move further and further away from that, and you're going to be so busy with what you do that you can't do both. It just doesn't work that way. So they have to, like you say, have a seat at the table, because that input is actually the most important input for the success of your technology investments, because now everyone is involved and connected to the why. Why are
Absolutely.
we doing this? What's in it for me? Why should I do it?
I think there's just that old train of thought, like those guys don't want nothing to do with this stuff, like what these millwrights they don't want to. You know what? Give them some skin in the game, man. I think you'd be surprised.
I
You
agree.
know, w- that was some of the most important people I would do. And a lot of that's missed out now with the IoT thing. Again, I guess I am that stay the hell off my lawn guy, but I think a lot of things are getting lost in the IoT. They keep saying data, data, data. We can get more data with a sensor. You can go and do more things. So my old ass, crabby ass, says, okay, um, like how much data do we need? I mean, there's just like massive amounts of useless data that you're paying for sitting on the cloud somewhere, or that's siloed because the company that's taking your data is holding it hostage in a cloud somewhere, and you can't use it in your process system. So that's
Oh,
useless. You know what I
man,
mean? I mean, we could
that's a
talk for
whole
days on that.
That's a whole episode right there, because and I'll just, for purposes of this episode, if you're a company out there providing a technology solution to anyone, a person, an organization, anything in between, and you're not allowing access to the data that's being created through your technologies, and you're holding it hostage, stop that. Just
Stop
stop.
that.
Just stop. There's nothing else to say about that.
I don't know. I would look at it more like this, Greg. I think the biggest problem with embracing technology is there's people out there that are afraid to embrace some of the new technology, simply because they're so used. Um, they're set in their ways, right? I mean, change. People don't want to change. Like I said, it comes down to communication, like you were saying about culture. So, for instance, like I'll ask people, like, are you happy with paying subscription fees? Are you happy with meaning, are you happy with not owning your hardware or your software? Here, let me put it this way. There's starting to be a paradigm shift out there because I think I think the C-suite execs, they're bored now. Their little pet projects with the IoT stuff, they've now moved on to something else. Or again, you were saying, like, what are some of the barriers? Well, the barriers are there's just as much turnover at in the penthouse as there is on, probably more so. So they come in, we're going to implement all this IoT, we're going to make these changes. Next thing you know, they're gone.
Yes.
And then people are sitting there wondering on the bottom and like, I never wanted this shit. I don't know what any of this is. Just give me back my damn data collector or whatever. Or they do have somebody that embraces it. Again, I'm picking on the IoT. I'll probably get a bunch of hate mail. But um, I think that's part of it too. Like I said, that big rush there. But the other thing is people have become so accustomed to being charged vast amounts of money for service agreements, maintenance agreements, all the stuff's going to subscription base. And I hate to tell you, people out there, by and large, a lot of these people, they don't want subscriptions.
Hmm.
The IT departments hate it. They don't want to deal with it. Um, it's, like, Does that make sense to you?
It,
It's
it does, it does, and I've seen these exact things. Almost like all these things that we're talking about, it's not like we're calling out new stuff. Maybe we're just
no,
calling out stuff that nobody else is calling out, and there's plenty of people calling it out. I think we're just talking about it and around it. So you're not like attacking IoT or sensor monitoring or CMMS or any of these things.
no,
Now,
not at all.
if it's organizations that are going through this kind of turnover, regime changes, all that type of stuff, if you will, they're going to have these problems. I think one of the things you were talking about that I just, before I lose the train of thought, I want to talk about it. You get these people that parachute in, they come in to take on a critical role in the C suite, and they do these things, they buy some technology, sensors, whatever it might be, then they move on for one reason or another. This happens. This is part of what we're doing out here in the
Right.
world. We're living a life and things change. Now you get someone else comes in, and then maybe they have less visibility to that, and then they get some other technology. Now there's two pieces of technology, and then a third person comes in, and this one happens to be a person that says, wait a minute, there's a couple more rocks I could look under.
Hmm.
And then he finds one of the technology pieces. And then he looks a little bit further and he finds the other technology piece. And neither of them have been implemented, but they're
Right.
paying for them.
Oh,
And,
for
and that
sure.
that
And
and that's what needs to happen for those companies to no longer suffer under those needless subscriptions and technology that's just a total boat anchor. Maybe not on the fault of the technology, but the way they're structured and what's happening and all these ins and outs of, you know, C suite or otherwise. It's just a really big, big, big subject that we can do on and on and on with multiple episodes. So I think everybody gets the point, and I don't know if there's a point other than, hey, everybody, let's just slow down just a touch, at least take a breath, do more work on the assessment side before you move forward on these technologies. And if you have technology and it's sitting around, get somebody to help you figure out what you should do with it. Maybe you don't have to scrap it. Maybe there's a way to get it back on track. Maybe you can
well,
reach out to one of these great companies. Who knows?
yeah. Like I said, my passion with this is, of course, I love the technology side of it and stuff like that. SPM being a end-to-end condition monitoring provider, everything from a simple vibration transmitter to wireless sensors to our high-end online monitoring. I love that stuff. I love it. But what I really love doing is speaking to companies about, again, bringing it back down to the asset. Is this a super slow, ultra slow 0.75 um, DD washer that we're monitoring? Well, we're not going to put a wireless sensor on that, guys. We're going to look something a little bit different. We're going to
Mhm.
things like that. I like breaking it down like that. Again, I think a lot of stuff just got pushed too quickly. Um, Give it 5 years, we'll probably be having a completely different conversation.
Certainly,
But a
certainly. I
lot
mean,
of the wireless tech, it's not there yet as a
not
one
yet.
size fits all. There's not a one size fits all approach. And this whole thing of data, 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 just it needs to just stop. Because I tell people, like, why do you need more data? How about good relevant data? Why don't we focus more on relevant data instead of more data? Because what the hell are you doing with all that data except paying a bunch of money for it to sit on somebody's cloud so they can improve their AI at your expense? Like I'm saying, the whole thought process to me, as you can tell, I get a little fired up about it. Makes
Yeah.
makes no sense. They'll market it as things like, well, if you put an IoT sensor on something or an online system on something, well, then you free up all the time. Your maintenance people are doing more meaningful work. And I sit there and I scratch my head and I say, all right, so you're going to put $5,000 worth of sensors on just a regular motor pump to save time. Um, I'm like, okay, I used to be able to get through a paper mill in a day and a half and
Mhm.
have a very high quality report generated within 48 hours.
Mhm.
That takes maybe 3 days. What the hell are you doing with the other 28 days in your month? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, where are you spending your money? Kind of like I put out that thing on LinkedIn the other day where I started bringing awareness to it,
Mhm.
very politely saying, is your program costly or is it cost effective?
Right.
Like, I,
There's a
I
big
think
difference.
a lot of this stuff is getting bought into as time saving, money saving. But when you look at it, when you look at all the fees on the back end, um, and different things, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, why would you want to get rid of route based analysis completely? There's a lot to be learned from walking through a plant talking to those operators that have been around that machine for 30 years, you know, seeing what it's doing. I will never be a fan of, again, the hate mail is going to start pouring in. Don't give my address. I'm gonna have to change my email address. But I've never been a fan of sight unseen analysis. I'm like, why do you want somebody monitoring highly critical equipment with a MEMS sensor from their basement? Is beyond me.
Yes, and
You know, that's probably a little too forward, but in my opinion, like I said, my 25 years of doing it. Again, maybe I'm that old guy, stay off my lawn, but I think there's a time and place. I think every tech has its place, but to market this stuff to say let's get away with it completely, subject matter experts are obsolete, portables are obsolete, you don't need this, all you need is a sensor, is complete bullshit. It is it's garbage,
you're
and
right.
that's what's muddying the waters, and that's why I've been pretty outspoken. And I won't mention names, but there's a few of us out there in the space that are like, hey, let's just slow this down and let's look at it.
Well, I'm a fan of that, and I'm a fan of everything you said when it comes to this idea that you're not going to do your monitoring, or you're not going to put, in the case of CMMS, you're not going to get a CMMS platform and then everything's hunky dory right now, tomorrow. It doesn't work
Right.
like that. It's got to involve people. I've always said that technology, as a tool, is there to enhance what you're able to do, amplify what you're able to do, give you clues ahead of time compared to what you were getting without the technology. But you got to have the human involvement. You got to, and you said something else, being there, on the plant floor, throughout the facility, talking to the people. You will not get any of that from any technology.
No.
You will not. And there's nothing else that needs to be said. You need both of these things to have successful operations. And I would even argue that if you had to choose between the technology and the people, there's a lot of situations where the people is what you need to focus on right now. Because then when you do get the technology, you're going to benefit more than possibly anybody else because you're ready for it. So that's all really cool. I want to do some fun questions. You got a few more minutes?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, first question, what is your favorite music?
Heavy metal for sure. I grew up playing bass guitar for since I was like in fourth grade. I already got my kids have been throwing up the horn since they were 2 years old. I'm not sure they know what the hell it means, but my littlest guy is like, too much metal for one hand, Dad. You know,
Oh, that's pretty slick what he did there.
so I'm we're a huge music house.
Nice.
Everything, I mean, um, my
There's
wife dragged me to I'm a huge fan of the arts, huge fan of music. Like I said, I'm a huge metal guy. I
yeah.
played in bands for a long time, wrote a lot of original music, recorded. Um, but yeah, I've always been a fan of metal. I like a lot of classic rock and stuff like that. But my wife dragged me to see Pink of all people, uh, twice this
Hey,
year. I saw her play at Miller Park, and I saw her play in Paris, France.
you,
And I'll tell you, the show quality was great. So I appreciate a little bit of everything.
yeah, I like it. I like it. But the metal, you're never going to go wrong with the metal. That's a
That's
fact.
right. Well,
Yeah.
I'm getting to be an old shit now, so I had to go on XM radio, so I listen to a lot of turbo,
Yeah. Oh,
90s and
yeah.
2000s metal.
There you go, man. There you go. A little bit of Godsmack.
Yeah,
Maybe
all
some,
that stuff when I was out making bad choices.
hey, look at you now.
Look at me now, flying
Yeah.
high.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite sport or hobby? And you don't necessarily have to play it. It could be something that you enjoy watching.
Well, my favorite sport to watch is baseball, which is probably about as many people say it's as boring as watching golf. But I'm a huge Milwaukee Brewers fan. Um, I love going to Miller Park. Part of it was because I did their condition monitoring for 20 years at the ballpark,
Ooh, that's
which was
cool.
a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun stories from that. Um, I like basketball. I like watching my kids play. I coach my daughter's softball with
Nice.
some other great parents. That's a lot of fun. Um, my favorite pastime, aviation. As you know, I'm a pilot. I love all things aviation. Even though my second family out at the airport, they call me the anti-aviator because I don't sit around talking about airplanes. I don't give a shit about what airplane can do what or whatever. I just like to get in. To me, it's spiritual. I love to get in my airplane, fly up north to northern Michigan or whatever, take my kids, and That's why you see me use a lot of aviation analogies and stuff on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and stuff like that.
Well, then you're definitely one, and we're not going to talk about it right now, but you would be a big fan of the OODA loop.
Mm,
That's for sure. That's for sure. We'll talk about that another time. So, question number 3.
yes, sir.
It's a fun question, but this one, and there are no right or wrong answers here. What is your view and or approach slash opinion to work life balance?
Mm, work-life balance. That's I'm not sure if I'm the right guy to ask that because I get yelled at all the time. I I think what made me so wildly successful in my service career is that I got back to people. So a lot of times, if somebody calls me up or whatever, or text message, if I can just hit them back or answer a question or whatever, my wife's like, "Don't you have any boundaries?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it doesn't take nothing, But I get it. Work-life balance. You know, my work-life balance changed when I got out of the service side of it, and I'm doing what I'm doing now because now it's not like work. Like I said earlier, SPM is an amazing family company, family values. That's truly a unicorn in this business, man.
Yeah.
They support me with taking time to write articles. They support me in taking time when customers to talk to customers about how to, because we're not paid to be consultants, but they
Right.
know, and I think that's why they hired me is because I've been doing this so long, boots on the ground. And for
You're
me,
going to
if
consult.
I'm going to consult, but I don't even I consider myself more of an educator. Again, I like to educate companies and people on the right way to successfully implement a condition monitoring program and what it takes to do it right. Like I said, I hope I didn't come off as anti IoT at all because I'm not, because we are big into that space. It's just I pick on that because of the real crazy marketing that's been going on with a lot of that and
Yep.
and stuff. But what I like to do, as you know from my presentation, that I'm going to be offering free here, through lunch and learns through my area here in the Midwest, and then on LinkedIn as well, because I want people to be educated because
Right.
it's just missing. Like I said, I think people get given a tech and hope that it works out, and that's just ludicrous thinking. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, work life balance to me, I love what I do, man. I really do, and SPM gives me that platform, that autonomy to speak with people like that. And like I said, I've never been a fan of. I never thought in a million years I'd be on the sales side of anything. I never liked salespeople.
We
Um,
we we
but it
get
happens
every
organically. For me, it happens organically because I speak that language. That goes
yeah.
back to what I say. The biggest thing I preach is language. A lot of people preach culture. I speak language. Everybody's got to speak the same language in there. And again, I use, if you'll humor me, I use the aviation analogy. There's 100,000 flights a day globally. That's a lot of airplanes. People think the sky's a big place, but really it's not. You got all these planes going, all these people talking, communications, and I tell people, think about this. Think of your plant like this. If you had all the pilots, air traffic control, grounds people, all speaking a different language, what an absolute shit show that would be. There's a reason why air travel is so safe, besides the skills of the pilots, the skills of air traffic control, the skills of the mechanics, everybody. It's a universal language, and it's checklists that work and procedures. That's why aviation is what it is. And why should our plants be any different? The execs are speaking one language, IT speaking another language, me, the vibe guy, speaking another language. And like I said earlier, I'm not even invited to the damn table because I'm just the vibe guy, you know?
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that I'm the guy responsible for your billions of dollars in assets and answering your $1 million question if it'll make it to the next down. Um, but I don't have a seat at the table. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. People got to have the same language and implement this stuff, not just put your faith in the technology or whatever. So,
I I I love that. And Matt, this has been a blast. And for all of you watching and or listening, that is the Knuth on the loose. Telling you like it is. So if you want to get in touch with Matt, be sure to connect with him on LinkedIn. It's Matthew Knuth. That's Knuth, and he is at SPM Instrument. Matt, thanks for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Hey, brother, it's been a pleasure.
Very cool. Very cool. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit cmmsradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.